Good afternoon. My name's Karl Craig. I'm with the City of Tampa, as I said earlier. And I'm not only with the technology department, I think one of you mentioned the classic IT geek. That's not me. They let me out of the building to speak to people. That's right, I'm the translator. But I spent over 10 years with the water utility in Tampa as their technology manager. So I understand water data. But what I'm going to illustrate for you today is how the city of Tampa recognized that we were not doing a good job of data analysis. We were collecting lots of data. We had lots of data in silos. And as with any issue, it usually takes some external factor to make you realize that you need to change. And for us, look at that, I found the button on the first try. For us, it was when we got a new mayor in 2011. Mayor Buckhorn campaigned on the Buckhorn Plan. It was about a 20-point plan, economic development for the city of Tampa. He's going to fix all these things. Now, this mayor had a longevity with the city of Tampa as a mayor's aide for many years, under two mayors, a city council person. So he knew our organization, and he knew what he wanted to change. So as good employees about to get a new boss, we decided we better read this plan right away so we could react to it. And what we found in the technology department was the mention of e-services and e-business and e-management, so we paid attention to that. But what really caught our eye, where we knew we had to react, was this statement from another section. It said, city staff will be focused on outputs, not processes, under Bob's leadership. So we tried to figure out what did that mean to us. So we decided to go ask all the department directors how would they focus on outputs and not processes. And they all said they needed data to do that. Well, historically, data in the city of Tampa, and I heard this mentioned this morning, it was very application specific. I think one gentleman mentioned silos, how silos, the myth is silos are dead and everything's big data. Well, I'll tell you, they are alive and well in Tampa. We have lots of silos. And that's by application. Many of you mentioned a lot of applications you support and you collect data in. So we realized that those silos of information were just issuing static reports on a weekly, a monthly, maybe even an annual basis, but over time that data just gets ignored because there's no value beyond that one static generation of the report. Nor was that data getting moved up the chain to make executive decisions. So we realized that they were just dead warehouses, dead files of information. And it looked much like this, where we had reports, documents. Maybe we got as sophisticated as an Excel spreadsheet, but still the data wasn't adding value to the organization. So we realized a change was needed, and our directors told us they needed real-time KPIs, the buzzword from quite a few years ago, key performance indicators. But the focus of government was starting to become citizen-facing, no longer just about water quality, keep the pipes from leaking, fix the potholes. But citizens wanted to know what we were doing and be able to interact with us in a certain way. Much like the gaming environment the gentleman just spoke about. Today, people want to interact on their phones. and through tablets and stuff. They don't want to call us up on the phone anymore. But if they're unhappy, they will call the mayor's office. So for us in technology to react to that, we took an inventory of all the data that we had out there. And there's some similarity in some of the systems that the Water Management District we're talking about. We have SCADA, Esri, GIS, meter reading data. We collect a lot of data in order to bill customers for their utilities. Upwards of about 2 million records a year. And some of that goes to water management districts, regulatory agencies. So that's a large set of data that we really had. We were using it in the short term, but not in the long term. So we've tried to figure out what we could do with that. So what do you do in that situation? You want to understand who your customers are and what their needs are. So we had all these customers: mayor, administrator, citizens, department directors, employees, regulators. And we looked at all the different types of data they used or wanted to use, but there was really no correlation. I mean, they wanted it all. For me, looking at this, when we started talking about it, we had a lot of these things already. We had graphs, reports, charts, tables, but these down here at the bottom, on-demand queries. That's where you're starting to analyze the data, as you know. So that's where we figured the real value was for our customers. And let me mention while I'm here, during this time, and those of you that are in near IT areas working with data collection and GIS, you might realize that over the last few years in technology, there's been a shift where, especially for governmental agencies, internal technology departments always tried to dictate policy. You're going to use these standards because we know what's best when it comes to technology, and you're going to use this program this way, and don't ask questions about it. I mean, did some of you have that experience as well? I know I experienced that. I was on both sides of that argument. I was trying to tell people what to do in one area and trying to be the customer in the other, saying, I need more services. Well, the shift for us in technology has been to turn around and face the customer, those other city departments and our citizens, and say, how can we serve you? What do you need from us versus us telling you what standards we approve? So it's more of that open source of technology. So to do that, we decided we initially needed to make an investment in hardware. Servers are expensive, and we're talking a lot today about big data and storage, and that can be very expensive. So we invested in virtual servers, virtual machines, so we could react quickly and start to collect the different disparate sets of data out there into more useful sets, which improved response time. It didn't take us months to stand up a new server any longer. Go through that ordering hardware process, specifications. Literally in hours, just within a couple of hours, we could stand up a new server and have it available for some use. So how do we do that? Well, we first took that application-centric data. For us, one of the first pieces was on our mainframe, MSS, multi-services system. That's our utility, billing, and account data. That was one of the larger sets because we're generating all those meter readings, utility bills, consumption information. And we put that into a data warehouse. But that really turned out to be just another report because we had to build a crystal report for that. You had to tell us what data you wanted, and then we were able to give you that report. may have been on demand, might have been easier for you, but it was still static information. So we took that information and wrapped it in a cube format, which is just a three-dimensional database that we could now apply some analysis to. And the cool thing about that was technology didn't have to be responsible for that analysis. It was a simple enough tool to use that our end users could do that. If you were familiar with Excel, it's just a pivot table in Excel. So that gave them the ability to start asking what-if questions to their data. But then again, that still wasn't enough, because it was still fairly application-centric. So we looked at an investment in SAP Business Objects Enterprise, which if you know anything, or you've heard of Tier 1 applications, Oracle and SAP, the really big boys that do the large databases, financial systems, things that would run your entire organization or government. We were able to layer that SAP OBE environment right here in the middle between the data and the customer, and it gave us what they call universes, which is a way to organize the data intelligently and then provide dashboards, cubes, formatted information, and it didn't require IT to do all of that work. But that wasn't the final end of it. You could also pass that information over to an application like Cognos or some other reporting tool to make it easy. So we didn't have to train everybody to be a report writer. So this is fairly illustrative of our current environment. And I'm going to get back to this slide or a similar one in a second. But what that allowed us to do is, I mentioned citizens were a big factor today. They want more information. They want to interact with the city more. They want to know what we're doing. So because of this, we were able to publish metrics on our website to show citizens how our water utility is doing, how our wastewater utility is doing, how much water they treat per month, stormwater. The one I picked as an example, this is on our website currently, is potholes. I mean, who doesn't think of the city when you think of potholes? You know, you drive down the street, bam, there's another one, damn it. I'm going to call the city right now and tell them. And I thought this one was interesting because look at this spike right here in August of this year. That was a lot of potholes. We had a really large rain event right before that, and it took them over a month to catch up to fill all those potholes. But this is data that we didn't have available before that now is useful to somebody, including ourselves. Maybe most importantly, it's useful to our mayor because he's looking at this data now, saying, are we focused on process or are we focused on outcomes? And this illustrates how we're able to focus on outcomes. Many of you mentioned GIS data. We have a very robust Esri environment now in the city of Tampa, and we're able to take other sets of data, layer it on with our spatial data within GIS, and this particular one is showing us in real time, this is on the city's website, traffic advisories, and you can see the little, like right here, the little yellow policeman warning motorists to avoid those areas because there's traffic delays there within the past few minutes. So again, it's just extending the data out to the customer to make it more useful. This is an example of what we're able to do now by aggregating this data together, running it through a useful engine environment that we can provide KPIs similar to this for our directors. They can make business decisions now not based on experience, but actual real-time or recent data. The next thing we realized, and this is where I think it's most relevant to this group, is while it may not be considered big data in terms of what we've been talking about today, by starting to aggregate all of those application-centric data sets into one large city data warehouse, for us, that's the biggest data we've ever seen. Now that we're layering water data, wastewater data, traffic data, even external sources like temperature and rainfall, we found a real advantage that now the data is starting to tell us a story, and we can make decisions based off of a story versus a point in time. Our treatment facilities for both water and wastewater generate enormous amounts of data with their SCADA systems, telemetry, water quality, flows, levels, pumping information, and we can aggregate that together and make it useful to many different stakeholders. For all that to make sense to me when I thought about it, when I thought about putting this presentation together, I wanted to give an illustration of how a recent decision that was made based on a big data concept, aggregating data together, telling us something about that, and using that to make a decision. In our code enforcement area, recently in Tampa, there was a high-profile, it was in Hillsborough County actually, high-profile official who was found to be operating what would be considered slums. They termed him a slumlord. Low rent, disgustingly dirty places that he was renting to people of very low income. You would almost consider these people homeless. So, as with any government, we saw the headline in our constituent, our neighbors, and go, well, how can we prevent us being in the headlines? We didn't want that to happen to us. So our code enforcement said, I know what we'll do. We'll go out and inspect every single rental property we have in the city. We haven't been doing it before. How are we going to do it now with the same amount of staff? We'll contract it out, he said. Great, another expense. So we're going to contract out this entirely new service at great expense because our code enforcement officers already had so much work they can't keep up with what they have. So we heard about this, that this was happening, and said, wait a second, we have a lot of data from permitting system, we have a lot of data from code enforcement, and we do have some data on rental certificates. We combined those together and found that only 25% of the properties have code issues. So they were going to go inspect 100% of them at a very high cost when only 25% have an issue. But then only 15% of that 25%, so a much lower number, became nuisances, the type that they were concerned about that had just hit the paper and was very embarrassing to another agency. So we brought this data to the administration, to the leadership of that department, and not only did we show them this analysis, we brought some recommendations along with you, because I've never had a boss that wanted me to bring them just problems. What do they want us to bring them? Solutions, that's right. So we suggested that with their existing staff, they could change this fee-based system of everybody coming in and applying for a rental certificate that then required an inspection that was going to be an additional cost either to us or to them, and only inspect those problems that have a violation. So they could use existing code enforcement officers, existing code enforcement data, and apply another sub-process to it. And it could be funded through fines versus everybody paying for it, those that wouldn't have a problem. So it seemed like a much fairer system, much more cost equitable to everyone. They thought about it and decided we were right. So now this is how they do it in the city of Tampa. One more example that I think might be a little more relevant to the water industry and those water and utility people in the room is, again, we're government. We have an elected mayor, and they don't like to get bad press. So right when this mayor took office, we had some rather affluent neighborhoods suddenly complain about their utility bills. They thought their bills were too high. Talking with neighbors as you would in your neighborhood, someone said, "My bill's low." Other person said, "My bill's high. Why is that?" So they immediately thought, bad government. We must be idiots. We must be wrong. There's no way. It's consistent the whole year through. My bill never changes. How could that be possible? So we looked at all of that billing data that we had, consumption data, billing data, and we added temperature and rainfall to it. Did an analysis and showed them that they're right. Their consumption did not change. So regardless of whether it was raining or cold, they were still watering the heck out of their lawn. I mean, that's a problem, right? We try to deal with through conservation measures, and they just probably weren't getting that message. So instead of the city refunding utility bills because we just assumed we were wrong, we did the analysis and found out that, in fact, we were correct, and this allowed other city agencies to then step up the water conservation and education programs in that area to help them lower their own utility bills, thus, protecting a valuable resource for us all. So I thought those were great examples of how to take the idea of big data, large data sets, aggregating data together, and making it useful. What that did for us gave us greater agility and analysis capabilities. But it also illustrated to us that just because it's there doesn't mean people will use it or know how to use it. Someone mentioned earlier from one of the water management districts that moving the data closer and training people in how to use it is very important, that they need to understand tools and techniques. And that's becoming a part of our culture as the next generation is moving in because it's more natural to them. But those decision makers that are still here at the top, the gray hairs, like myself, we need to train them as well so they can incorporate this methodology, this decision making into their decision process. Which is also another opportunity, something I'm very passionate about, and that is technology and business working together for a common goal, not fighting against each other like I mentioned before, how sometimes we're at odds. This is just another opportunity for us to serve the business and to be a valuable asset to any utility, agency, or even private business and corporation. That it's very important that they work together. And this is one of those ways that you can accomplish that, by providing them good solutions. That's all I got.
I have, and Karl mentioned just a few minutes ago the idea of being, whether you're process-oriented or objective-oriented or outcome-oriented. In 2006, sometimes we get these little assignments, or they're sometimes quite large, from organizations and agencies to do some facilitation work. In 2006, we did a retreat that was that we did for an organization called the Council of 100. How many of you have ever heard of the Council? It's the governor's business advisory organization. And the top 100 CEOs of the top 100 biggest companies in the state are on the council. And they wanted, there was a big, huge contention in 2006 with a constitutional amendment initiative called Hometown Democracy. Anybody remember that? And so we held a retreat for the environmental CEOs of the really big environmental organizations like Audubon and was there, and TNC and those, Florida Wildlife Federation. And we were sworn to secrecy. It was a totally secret meeting between the CEOs of the big companies and the environmental organizations. And one of the things we thought, we will be successful if we get one single unanimous agreement out of the whole group. By the end of the weekend, we got 6, which we were thrilled at. But one of the 6 agreements was that we have got to move away from being so process-oriented to being solutions-driven. And the illustration was given, and we had a member of the governor's cabinet there, and his impression was that agencies tend to figure out, can I get a binder of data that's 6 inches thick or 8 inches thick, and 10 inches thick is even better, as opposed to what is the outcome of all this going to be. And so I'm glad you mentioned that, because in 2006, it was an issue that was brought up do you do what we're doing to stack it higher? Or do you do what we're doing to come up with something that's really solution-driven that helps us fix problems? So I just thought I'd throw that out, because that was 9 years ago when that was being discussed.
Yep. Stan, I think that's a good point, if I may, sure, for one last thing. It's not, we've talked a lot about big data and how do you collect it, how do you store it, how do you make it useful, but don't wait till you get there. You can start doing lots of things now, and I think a great illustration of that is I was at a Florida Benchmarking Consortium workshop a couple of weeks ago, and Toho Water Authority, their executive director, yes, he was there, and he was showing how they're managing data and using metrics and to really gauge how their utility is running. And he showed us some screens with these really nice charts and graphs. And when he was done, someone in the back stood up and said, "What application are you using to produce all that? That looked great, because that's what I need. I want to get there." And he surprised everybody in the room when he said, "That's Excel. We just take all the data we have, we spend about a half an hour, push it through Excel, and we can get these pretty charts that everybody can understand." And I thought that was such a great point. And that was an outcome versus a process. They didn't wait till they got to the end where they could use a tool. he found an interim step, and that's what we did at the City of Tampa. We went through several iterations to now we're approaching the environment that we're talking about here today, of big data and analysis.
Okay, any questions? Or,
Yes.
So you mentioned solutions. So you had a graph there with the potholes. You noticed that in August it went up high.
Yes.
Now you have this data.
Everybody hear okay? I can hear you fine.
Okay.
But
So now you have this data.
yes.
So what do you do with it? Do you go to the mayor? Do you go to the governor?
Yes. Well, the question is, now that we have this data, what do we do with it? And from our perspective, the mayor does look at that. We publish those reports depending on the data, weekly or monthly, and the mayor looks at it, so he knows that we're hitting that benchmark. And in fact, if I can quickly get back to that slide, I'll show you. Oh, there it was. This is you see the bars of the number of potholes completed, and we're trying to hit that yearly average. If we get, and this probably isn't the best example, because we do have other charts and graphs that show a standard that we should meet. We inspect 12,800 fire hydrants per year. So we have to do over 1,000 per month to meet our standard, to make sure all hydrants are working in the city when you need them. Because the last thing we want is for the hydrant in front of your house to be inoperable. That's the last thing you want when you need it. So if we're not doing those inspections, it won't hit that 1,000 per month average. So we're using the data to make sure we're on track. Some of the data we generate goes to the water management districts or to Tampa Bay Water, our local water wholesaler. That's a much larger set of data because they're collecting all the consumption usage and water produced in 6-member governments, 3 counties and 3 cities in the Tampa Bay region. And that data, I learned today, is being used by many people across the state. It goes to the water management districts. There's a young lady right over here doing some analysis with that data now. So once you get it out there and make it public, it does become useful. We also have another page on our website where we produce and give away lots of data sets. Any data we think is useful, we'll wrap it up, put it out on our website, and it's free to use for anybody. You just got to go get it, and maybe we could do a better job of publishing that it's there, but once people find it, they consume that data regularly. Many iPhone and Android apps are being developed off of that free data we provide all the time. But one of the ones that come to mind is an update of the bus schedules in Tampa. You don't have to go to a website to find that. You can download an app on your phone and to know if your bus is on time or not, because that's data we publish on a regular basis, available to all citizens. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Who else?
This is a good example of how you can take your information to the next level, because you indicated that rainfall is probably the main driver behind potholes. That makes sense because you're undermining the roadway. So maybe you could set your expectations for the number of potholes that's based on the number of rain events that exceed a certain number of inches per year. So that you're not artificially saying, oh, we missed our pothole filling event on a dry year. You didn't have as many potholes to fix, Save their asphalt for the rainy years to do it then, rather than having some kind of artificial thing that would be measured to.
That's correct. We used to track asphalt used because that was a cost to us. How much asphalt did we buy last year? What did that mean to us? Not a lot until you see it in this context. That meant we bought extra asphalt because we had a lot of potholes. So yes, it does make it relevant, and by combining data together in different ways makes it even more relevant to others.
Probably rainfall data that goes along with this, and you can do
Yes.
that. Just keep combining and make your operations more efficient as you go along.
Right.
It's going to be a wet area, we better, tell our guys to get ready, there's going to be more potholes, as well as all the flooding.
Right. And it's that type of conversation about what interests you in the data and myself of what data do I have available and how can I combine it or help you do an analysis to answer a question. It's all about the current question. What do I want to know right now? If it's left up just to IT, we'll go back to those siloed application-centric data sets and be caretakers of the system. But when we flip that around and become proactive and help with analysis and offering solutions, then it becomes useful. So it's that conversation and that dialogue between technology and the business that drives this to where it's valuable.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karl.